Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of the People Progressing podcast. Really excited today. Have a former Division One football player for Virginia Tech, Mike Daniels, on, and it's got a great story and really great story of what he's doing now to bring athletes together in the business world and so forth. But Mike, what I do to start every one of my podcasts is I just ask where you're from, what you like to do as a kid, what'd you do as you grow up? Did you play different sports? Band, theater, whatever it was, that some of the things that influenced you to where you are now.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. That's a great question. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to
No, I'm
speak,
excited.
talk with you. And so, yeah, I'm from originally from Northern Virginia. I actually was born in Germany. My father was in the military,
Okay.
served 20 years as an MP in the military. So I was born overseas, but eventually moved back to Northern Virginia, and that's where my dad retired. So grew up playing sports. Had an older brother, older sister, and I grew up doing a little bit of everything. I mean, we didn't necessarily have sports trainers or skill trainers, but our trainers were just each other, just
Yeah.
going out and
Yeah.
anything from playing hockey with rollerblades on the street to playing pickup basketball where you're waiting for next game, and if you lose, you're off for an hour or two. And football obviously is what I ended up playing in college, but we did it all. We absolutely did it all. I think I had a short stint in baseball. It was actually t-ball. So I didn't play that long, but basketball and football were my main sports. But as far as just playing, we did everything. We did everything out on the schoolyard or out on the street or outside
So you mean to tell me you didn't have to pay for someone to teach you how to do all that and train you and all that? You just kind of went out and you and your buddies did that?
all the time. Every No, I mean, and the parents didn't have to ask to, hey, can you go outside or pick up a ball or do something? We just did it, and you got the reps in the old-fashioned way. You didn't know you were training, but you were,
Yeah.
right? Especially when
Yeah.
you still had some of those competitions against older kids where you got to battle just to hang in there. And so that's
Yeah.
what we did every day.
Uh,
Every
I
day we
love it.
competed.
So your dad was in the military. What was that like, Mike? To grow up with a dad, I'm sure the discipline piece was probably pretty big in your family. Tell us a little bit about your dad and what he did in the military.
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad was a military police, an MP.
Oh, wow.
He did 20 years in the army, and um, growing up, I remember I was born in Heidelberg, Germany, and we moved to the States pretty quickly. So we moved back when I was 3. And I remember going to a couple different schools. My dad retired when I was pretty young, I believe at 6. But I remember going to a couple different schools. And I remember at one of my schools, the first day I was out there, I got beat up on the playground. My parents probably don't even know that. But being a new kid and going to new places, you have to
Yeah.
reestablish new friends. And sometimes that was a little challenging. But luckily for me, he retired pretty early, and so we had a stable childhood as far as being in one place from the time I was 6 on. So that the house we moved into when I was 6 stayed all the way through me being in high school and in college. But growing up in a military family, you have a little bit of structure.
Yeah.
You have a
Yeah.
little bit of structure. I mean, you learn the yes sir, the no sir, that you learn. You just do things a certain way. And we had a great conversation yesterday to where we talked about you can tell if someone has an athletic background. Well, you can also tell, kind of, generally speaking, if someone was raised in a military family. There's
Yeah.
some of the same characteristics and some of the same foundational principles are instilled in both.
Well,
And
as a former teacher and coach, I always could tell when someone grew up in a military background.
yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, if I had 30 of those in a classroom, I wouldn't be going bald and gray right
I hear that.
now.
I hear that. I hear that.
Um, and,
Um,
and now you went to high school. You were a very accomplished basketball player as well as a football player. How important was it for you, Mike, to play multiple sports?
it was super important. I mean, because and I coach now my daughter, and once she plays multiple sports, but I coach her in basketball. But what I've learned through coaching and even through playing is like each time you step into a different sport, you really have a different role. Your
Yeah.
capabilities, um, your capabilities are different. You have a different role in the team, and you have to learn that. Like one sport, you might be the best, you might be the captain, you might be the vocal. In another sport, you're more of a role player, right? You could be super athletic. and you learn those different things. And I think that's important because in life, depending on where you go and what happens to you, you're going to be in different positions.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're the leader, sometimes you're the follower, sometimes you're both. It's all the above. And so playing multiple sports for me was huge. It brought a energy to what I was doing when we transferred from sport to sport.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
football, love hitting people,
Yeah.
love loved it. I love the whole thing, right? I love the contact, I love the physicality, I love the nature of it. But when I transitioned to basketball, I love that too. I love that too. And so, different set of challenges, different things you have to work on, and just different engagement, even with the crowd, even just
Right.
performing in
Right.
different environments. One, basketball, the people are right there,
Right.
right? When you
Yeah.
shoot a free throw, that's a lot of pressure for a
Yeah.
young person to
Hmm.
start to learn how to adapt to and go through it versus on a football field where you're hundreds of yards away. It's just a different type of connection, a different level of that you need to perform on, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's I always used to tell people too, it's you compete different ways, so it just prepares you for what's going to happen in life, right? You're going to be doing different things, like you said, follow leader, all those different things, and competition's different. Everything's kind of different, but all of it prepares you for life's challenges and life's competition. And that's what's so great about playing multiple sports as well. It gives you a chance to learn that moving into life. And I applaud people who do it. Nowadays, it's kind of a hard thing. People don't do it as much, and it's kind of sad that the adults in the world now are making kids choose and do one sport and do those things. But having you on and having Jake on last week is kind of good because you guys were both multiple sport athletes and explained your experiences with that and how it's helped you in life. And I love that.
Absolutely.
Now you had to make a decision between basketball and football for college. You got to go to one of the most prestigious institutions in the country and play football. What made you decide football over basketball? And in the school you went to, Virginia Tech is amazing. So what made you
Thank
choose that?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think one, if I'm 6'1", if I was 3, 4, 5, 6 inches
Yeah,
taller,
yeah,
the basketball path might have been that might have been the path I went down to. But truthfully speaking, Joe, like one of my deciding factors in the sport that I played was in football, you have a roster of 50 plus people, right? There's 22 spots, offense, defense, and then there's special teams, right? It's 11 on each. And so part of my thought process is, okay, which opportunity gives me the best opportunity to play, right? Making a basketball team with 5 players playing,
right, right.
or making a football team where there's 11 on offense, 11 on defense, 11 on one special teams, 11 on all these different. And so to me, I was like, well, that's my route. That's my route. And I love the sport. I love the physicality of it. I enjoy watching it. Now is harder than I remember playing it, because playing it, you're in the arena. And so
Yeah, yeah,
you don't think about the consequences, even with injury. Watching it now, it's kind of like, ooh, ooh, that's
yeah.
and my senior year was 1999 in high school. That was a year, and I'm a Virginia kid, and that was a year that Virginia Tech and Mike Vick took them to the national championship. So
Yeah.
as I was being recruited as a senior and I was about to make my decision, it really came down to 2 schools, and that was UVA and Virginia Tech. And my mom, was a teacher, counselor, very motivated by academics, and it was a priority for the choice that I made. And so it came down to those 2 schools, and my mom preferred UVA, right? And so we end up as a family. I'll never forget this. We sat down in our family room and we had a flip chart. I never forget this. A big, huge flip chart, and we were writing down the pros and cons of each school.
Okay.
And I encourage people to do this when you're making decisions on whatever level or
Yeah,
how you
yeah.
mobilize to do this. But we did a pros and cons, and at the time, the last one it came to was, can I win a championship? It was the very last one after academics, friends, coach, all these different things. But can I win a championship? Because you never forget championships. You never forget being a part of that type of environment.
Right, right.
because there's more than just a championship. It's the environment that created the championship.
Yeah. God, that's
That's,
perfect.
that's
Yeah, that's awesome.
right. That's what we wanted.
Yeah, you get me
And at the
fired up.
time, and I think this is still the case, UVA had never won an ACC championship. And at the time, Tech was in the Big East, and they were in the process of winning the Big East. And so I was like, well, obviously, one, yes, and the other one has remained to be proven that you could win a championship. And thankfully, my senior year, we moved into the ACC and we won a championship. We won the ACC championship my senior year, and we did that flip chart in 1999, and we ended up winning the championship 2004.
That's
So
awesome.
writing it down, I think there's power to that, and it helped out with my decision.
Yeah, what a great thing. And just say make decisions in anything, not just picking a school, but in anything. Excuse me.
Absolutely.
Question. Who in your playing career at Virginia Tech, who was the most influential person
Hmm.
in terms of like your coaches that taught you a lot about leadership?
Hmm. Oh, that's a great question.
Because Frank Beamer he's a Hall of Fame coach. I don't
Yes.
know.
Yes. I would say Frank, what I what I what I truly respected among multiple things about Coach Beamer is he treated everybody fairly and equally,
Okay.
right? He treated everybody equally. So he was just a great example of just, I think, doing things the right way, right? Not giving people different levels of treatment. And so you obviously have a relationship with the head coach, but on a more intimate level, I guess my defensive coordinator, Coach Foster, was an amazing example. My position coach, Coach Ward, who recruited me, gave me the opportunity, and they were very different personality wise, but there was a level of accountability that was asked for from the coaches to the players. And in youth sports, I say high school and down, there's accountability and there's great coaches like yourself. And I had two Hall of Fame coaches in basketball and football. There's accountability, but the kids that go on to play college ball, they're accountable, but they're unique and they're so good. And sometimes their coach don't put an extra challenge on them because
Okay.
they're already
Okay.
competent, right?
Oh,
But
this
when
is
you get
awesome.
to college, it's a bit different.
Right.
You're asked to do a lot. You're asked to be at study hall. You're asked to be on time, to be early. You're asked to do film, to work. You're asked to do all these things. And so it's kind of the first time where you've really been, for me, where I was really challenged to be on my game, and not just on my game on the field, my game as a person. And so I would say Coach Foster and Coach Ward, I had the closest relationships with that really, I really learned about accountability and being accountable to my teammates at a very high level.
Man, that's powerful. And I love Bud Foster. I was a defensive coordinator for years and years, over 25 years, and I always looked up to his defenses and what he did. So that's kind of cool that you said that because the
Absolutely.
leadership that he gave you.
Um,
How much did this translate into your next stop after football was over?
yeah, I'd say a lot. I mean, one of the things that you learn through sports, and even if you have challenges, is that you have to put in work. You got to put in effort. And unfortunately or fortunately, however you see it, most of the time nobody even knows about it.
Yeah,
Nobody sees
right,
it.
right.
Not rewarded. You're not clapped. You're not rewarded on it. You don't have the mommy or daddy to say, "Hey, good job," or the fans. And so that really translated to me because a lot of it, when you transition to a W-2 or entrepreneurship, like most of the things that you do to be successful, nobody knows. They don't see it. And they
Yeah,
don't see what's going on in the background of your life and what's going on socially or in your family. And you still, despite whatever's going on, you have to be able to focus and do what you need to do when you need to do it. And so sports for me translate a lot. I mean, immediately after playing, I went into personal training, I was training youth athletes and also adults. And obviously that's a easy correlation because it's in the health,
yeah,
fitness,
yeah.
exercise area. So that was easy. But then I transferred, I moved into pharmaceutical sales and telecom sales and have a history of sales experience. But I would say one of the biggest things is doing the things when nobody's watching that you need to do. right? The discipline that you do not get rewarded on and that nobody will ever know.
And
That's one of the biggest things.
we're going to get into this, but I have to go back just for a second. Okay, this is how Mike was described his senior year as a football player. First and foremost, for those of you out there, I want you to put this in your brain. He squatted 550 pounds. Okay,
Yeah,
550 pound squat. Second, described as a smart player who plays physical brand of football. You've already
yes,
talked about how you like to hit people.
yes,
The
sir.
smart part, the smart part is where the leaders of your team could count on you
Yeah,
because you're smart. The
yes,
next
sir.
part, it says works hard
Mm.
and hits hard.
Mm.
Doesn't put himself in bad positions.
Mm.
Will be counted on for senior leadership. Now, I ask people out there listening to this, would you hire this man in a position after he got done playing?
That's awesome.
And my
By the
point
way,
point to this is why we do the things that we do, right? Because I have a saying that practice makes permanence.
mm,
Okay. Now, you didn't go into Virginia Tech squatting 550 pounds. That
oh no,
was because you redshirted a year. So that's 5 years of hard physical work to get yourself up to 550 pound squat,
yes,
right?
sir.
To have your coaches describe you as smart, to have your coaches say that they're counting on you to be a leader, those are things that you have to develop as you go. And practicing those things as you're going through your 5 years of Division I football, because I think people need to realize playing Division I football is like a full-time job.
Yes, sir.
Now you add the academics at a place like Virginia Tech, and that's just insane. With the amount of work and discipline, like you just said, the discipline you have to do all this stuff. And that practice of doing that for those 5 years of working so hard in the weight room and being smart and studying film and studying academics, and you don't put yourself in bad positions. They can count on you. They're counting on you for leadership. That practice of you doing that for 5 years translated into your life, in your success in pharmaceutical sales, telecom sales, and what you're doing now. And that's what I want people to understand is what you're doing now and what you just kind of said about what you're doing when people aren't watching. That's the discipline part. That's the part that carries over into your life. That's a good thing.
Yes,
And
sir.
I'm going to go back what you said about your coaches. This was the first time that not first time probably, but on a higher level where you're held accountable, where
Yes,
they challenged you, where
yes,
you had to be on time to meetings, you had to go to the weight room, and you had to study film, you had to do all these things. What they were teaching you there became permanent later on in your life.
yes, sir.
So I want to dip into some leadership talk here now, Mike.
Let's do it.
What
Let's
what
do
are
it.
some of the characteristics when you're in the business world and so forth, and now that you're doing what you're doing, we'll get to that in a minute, but what are some of the characteristics of a leader that you find that resonate with you the most that makes somebody a great leader?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it just depends, right? Because there's all different types of leaders, right? There's vocal leaders. There's that guy, right, that's going to get everybody ready to go, and
Right, right,
there's also those leaders that are, you don't have to look, you don't have to see them, you don't have to talk to them. You know they're doing the right thing.
right,
You know they're leading by example. And so to me, I think it's wherever you're comfortable. I mean, in my opinion, I believe God gave us all different personalities, gave us all different, and all of them are great, right? All of them can be great. And so I think one of the things is just be you, right? So if you're a vocal person, then that's part of your gift, and that's how you should lead. But some people aren't, and some people are more the example and just doing the right thing. So to me, I'm always watching. right? You're a coach, you're always watching, right?
Right,
Whether you
right.
say something, whether you're in the dugout or whether you're walking up to the field, you're kind of always watching. So for me, one of the things I'm looking for as a leadership is what are you doing? Right? Your words matter to me, but when I see what you're doing, it speaks more to me,
Right,
right? It
right,
speaks more, and especially now as a parent, it's funny as a
right.
parent, I say things and I hear myself saying things like "Don't run up the stairs," like my dad used to say to me, and I say, and but sometimes I'll still run up the stairs when I'm in a hustle, right? So it's like I say this to my daughter, but when she sees me, she has to be like, "Well, Dad, you're not doing what you're saying." So, and that's just transparency with you. But to me, whatever your personality is, just do the right thing and stay in your gift,
Yeah,
right? Be the example. Be the example whether people are watching or not. There's some people that look good, smell good, and all of us have our faults, right? And nobody's perfect, and we're all in this pursuit of hopefully growth and happiness, right? So nobody's perfect, but um, be in the pursuit of getting yourself better and working to get
wow,
better,
yeah,
and be in a eager pursuit of growing, right? And the others, everybody around you will see that, right? And I hope I listen to podcast just like you do, podcasts, whether it's books, audiobooks, whatever. And so my kids see me daily on a pursuit to grow, right? On a pursuit, they see it. I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it because I need it, right? And also I want to be the example of growth, right? So that's kind of
oh, I
my
love
long.
it.
It can look, the leadership looks totally different, but I look personally for what you're doing.
Yeah,
When my daughter starts dating, one of the things I'm going to say to her is, I don't care what he says, watch what he does. I don't care what he says. He can talk however, but if you watch what he does, his actions will tell you a lot,
yeah.
you know?
Well,
So
well, one of the podcasts I listen to, Ed Milet, and Ed Milet always says things are caught, not taught. And that's how I am too. And I'm the same way. I love studying people. People intrigue the heck out of me, and their stories intrigue the heck out of me. And what you do matters so much to me more than what you say.
mm,
And like I said, things are caught, not taught. So your dad always saying, "Don't run up the stairs" and everything else. Well, he was kind of teaching you that, but you caught it because now all of a sudden you're doing the same thing, right? So it's an interesting thing, and leadership is so important in our world. I think we have such a void in leadership in our country. And what you're trying to do now with locker room to boardroom is kind of enhance these people that are leaders, have been leaders and so forth, and help them keep growing and learning and progressing, so forth. Why don't you describe a little bit what you and Jake are doing with locker room to boardroom, and how you're trying to help people with that?
Absolutely. Locker room and the boardroom is really a passion project for Jake and I. We're excited about it. It's been growing, and our goal is just to basically, not just, but to build a community, right? Build a community of people that have shared similar experiences, gone through similar experience, and had just provide a network of people that are there for each other and can communicate together and just talk about past experiences, past successes, and future growth, right? So locker room to boardroom is a community of former collegiate and professional athletes, and we're excited about it. It's a Fort Collins based company that is growing nationally, and we're just excited about creating an atmosphere to where athletes, after they're, even while they're playing too, but after they transition into after sports, what are you doing? Do you have a place to go? Do you have a network of people that you can communicate with, talk with, grow with, get help from if needed? And so we started this company about 2 years ago and started very simply with just gathering together, right? And just talking and nothing specifically, but just getting in the environment. And we talked about this yesterday. To me, the environment's huge,
Mhm.
right? Your environment, we all, I think all of our parents, good parents, they were talk to us about who you're hanging out with, right? Who you're hanging out with, right? And then you have kids, and then you're like, watch who you're hanging out with,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and
yeah.
then it becomes like real, right? And so what we have found was there had been a gap as far as providing an environment and a place where people that have played collegiate sports at a high level that have a success history of success athletically, right? And had gone through some adversities that we can all talk about, right? That we all understand at different levels through different sports, but it takes a certain level of discipline, um, a certain level of commitment, a certain level of a lot, right? Even
Yeah.
people skills to survive in locker rooms,
Hmm.
right? Every locker room is a little different. And so we started to meet a few years ago and it just continued to build up. And what we found was there's just a gap as far as providing an environment where people could just get together and talk and leverage each other's relationships and really just connect the dots, right? We all know that your network is important, right? And what I realized was when I graduated from Virginia Tech, Virginia Tech has a very loyal community. I'd say it's a community. It's
Yeah,
about as loyal of
yeah,
a school. If somebody went to Virginia Tech, you probably know because they've worn a shirt, they have it on the bumper sticker, they have something, right? So it's very loyal. So I get that, and that's part of the reason I went there. But when you finish playing sports, that community, that close network, you might have some players from your team, but those pockets get smaller and there's just nothing out there right now. There was just nothing out there to really address connecting with people. And we understand how powerful a network is. Well, what happens when we start connecting these dots, right? What happens when I can introduce one person to another person that does similar things, that can share experiences, that can share wisdom, or just share a sounding board of ideas, which is something else that we talked about. So we're excited about what we have going on. We've been meeting with businesses, we've been meeting with schools, we've been meeting with individuals, and our goal is to connect as many dots as possible. Our goal is for an athlete, whether you're still playing or you've transitioned out, that you have a environment where you can go into this network and you can leverage it for whatever reason that you want and that you need. And for everybody, it's a bit different. Some people's transition out of sports is extremely challenging, and some people's easy. Right? Is that right? And for everybody, and for me, it was challenging as well, right? And I have some people that are still, in their late 30s and 40s are still going through it. And so our goal is to provide an environment where there's people that have gone through that process
yeah.
and you can connect with them.
Yeah, it's tough. I remember when I was done playing, I had surgery on my shoulder and I woke up and the surgeon was standing there and he said, the first thing he said to me was, you can't play anymore. And I had a degree and I went to work for a company and I felt lost. I mean, I was completely lost. I didn't realize it at the time either, how lost I was. It ruined a lot of things for me. And it was hard. It's a difficult transition. And what you guys are doing is kind of similar to what I'm doing with Vistage with our business peer groups is you bring peers together and you give them a community to talk with each other, support each other, guide each other, empathize with each other. And that's what the power of what I get to do with Vistage in my business peer groups. It's kind of what you guys are doing with former athletes transitioning. You're trying to help them with that transition into the business world and so forth. I love it because the outgoing Surgeon General from our last administration, his prescription for America was we need more community. We don't have enough community because of phones and all this other stuff. We've gotten really into ourselves and not really talking with each other much anymore. And he said we need more community. What you guys are providing people is a community, a big,
Absolutely.
huge community, and
Absolutely.
we need more of that. And what you guys are doing is phenomenal, and
Yeah.
I applaud you on it because it is tough in any transition. I'm thinking, off the top of my head when I'm listening to you, maybe we need to start one for actors or people that were in bands or different things. My daughter was in dance and so forth for people to to transition to something different because this kind of leads to my next question for you, Mike. How hard is change for
Yeah.
people? How hard is change for people?
It can be so challenging. And and I think part of it is, what are your long-term or short-term goals?
Yeah.
I one of the things that did help me with my transition out of sports, I believe, is because my mom was in the academic field. She was always interested in, and thankfully I still have both my parents are both alive, and was like talk to them every morning. So we talk about some of these things often, but she was always supportive with sports, and she was at every game. And we, even when I went to Virginia Tech, they went to about every game except for the Miami games. But that wasn't that didn't I
No.
didn't that wasn't what she was most proudest of me about.
Right. Right.
Right. And so she always, I've heard a term that you end with the beginning, you start with the end in sight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for my mom, that's how she always looked at sports for me. Right. And so when I did transition and when I was finished, I didn't have as challenging as a time as others, because my whole thing, I wasn't like being negative or pessimistic about my career or when it would end, but I did look at it as a tool. And at some point, that tool stops working. It could be after a long pro career, or it could be after college, could have been after high school. But at some point, and when that tool stops working, you're thankful for that tool and you put it away and it's done. Right. And so when I transitioned out, I was just like, okay, I tip my hat. I'm thankful. I met friends. I got my school paid for. I put on at the time Redskin helmet. They're the Commanders now, but I was able to do that at the time. Joe Gibbs was back coaching, so I was in the locker room with a historic, coach from the DC area where I grew up. And so, and I had on tryouts, and I chased for a little bit longer after that. But when I was done, I tipped my hat, and I was just thankful for that tool. And I put that tool aside and I refocused to the next thing. And so one of the things when you ask about change is, I would encourage everybody, and we do this as a family on New Year's Eve, is to write out your goals, right? Have an idea of what you want, because change can be hard, but if that change is anticipated, maybe you're at this phase that you're looking to accomplish this now, but there will be change later because you have a 10-year, 15, right? And so if you have a game plan, game plans change once you get in the game, but you have a tentative idea on, this is a roadmap that I would like. And I feel through personal experience and communicating with people, most people don't have that game plan. So any
Uh,
change that's outside of what you're currently doing is going to be completely altering, because there's not a long-term forecast. That's
that's
just my.
Oh, it's powerful. And I like the goal part because it does make you feel like, okay, this is where I need to go now. Right. And I'm a big goal person, but I'm more of a process person than a goal person.
No doubt. No
So when
doubt.
you set up a goal, what's your process to achieve that goal? I used to tell my players all the time, and I still use this all the time. Actually had a hat made that said fear, regret.
Mm,
Because as a leader, one of my jobs as a leader is to make sure the people that I'm leading don't have regret when it's over.
mm,
So it's about the process. So if I have a goal to, I don't know, let's go back to my career. I had a goal to get drafted in when I was in college. Well, what's my process to get there?
mm.
Kind of like your process, you had probably had some similar goals because you're squatting 550 pounds. That means you
Yeah,
you followed your process, right?
a little
Well,
bit.
if I missed a lifting or if I missed a sprint or if I missed something, I'm not winning my process.
No doubt.
And if
No
I
doubt.
don't win my process, now I'm going to have regret at the end.
Yeah.
So my goal as a leader is to make sure that the process is there and the process is followed and the process is won. And the goal's going to happen sometimes and not happen sometimes, but the process can happen every time.
No
The
doubt.
winning of the process can happen every time.
Love that.
And that's what I like to to, to stress to people I lead. But
Mm,
when you're talking about change and setting that goal, it helps you realize that there is a change.
yeah.
And I think that's really important. I teach or I coach my business people now that change is hard in a business. When people are set in their ways and all of a sudden you want to change something up or whatever, I tell them don't sell the change, sell the purpose behind the change.
Yes,
because the
yes.
purpose behind the change is what's going to get them to change.
No
And
doubt.
that purpose is something usually that's greater than themselves.
No doubt.
So what you're doing now and how you're helping so many people, what gives you that service attitude, that service heart? You've talked about your dad, you've talked about your mom, incredible human beings. Just
Yeah.
from the short time, I would love to meet them.
Yes.
Your mom set you up for success after athletics because her actions of always caring more about that than the sports helped you transition, helped you with that. It's
100%.
That's an amazing story, by the way, that people might miss. Is she was always focused, like you said, with the end in mind.
Oh
Even
yeah.
if you would have had a 15-year NFL career, she was still focused on the end in mind after that, the academic piece of it. Brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant. But when you're thinking about your career, what you're doing now, what gives you that servant's heart?
Yeah. Another great question. So I majored in sociology, interaction of people,
Okay, okay.
what we're doing now.
Yeah, yeah,
So to me, and it's funny, college, when you're in college, athletes, people take everything, right? Some things you take to get the grade to play, and some things you're interested in. Thankfully, luckily, I found a major that I was interested in because I've always been interested in people and relationships. I'm that guy in my group of friends that just will call you, just check on you, just see how you're doing because I just care.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
relationships to me, it's just like one, they can be hard to come by, especially tenured ones,
Right.
and even new ones are so important because in this process, really with locker room to boardroom, it's been clear as day that your environment and the people that you associate with and the people that you're able to connect with, it is so important. It's so important for you to be stretched and grow in. Like I think as adults, you can, and we all have been guilty, is get into places where you are comfortable. You're
Yeah,
just comfortable. Like
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
need to meet any more people, right?
Right,
I don't need
right.
to meet any new friends. I don't need to associate with this. I don't need to be stretched to read this book. And I would encourage everybody, and I encourage myself daily, my family, is to increase your circle of influence, connect with people, create relationships, help other people create relationships, add value to people. And so we're I've always been motivated to have those relationships and them being meaningful. I want my thing is like when and this doesn't always happen, but when I call, I want people to light up,
Yeah,
right? Know that
yeah,
I'm going to be positive, that know I'm going to be optimistic, that know I'm going to be a bright, that they never get off the phone with me and it's right. And so our goal right now is to aggressively create as many relationships as possible because we're all one relationship away from drastically changing our lives.
yeah,
We're all one. And so we are aggressively pursuing connecting these dots and connecting these networks and creating these relationships to where everybody can benefit and leverage them for whatever is important to them and whatever they're trying to accomplish. So it's always been a passion of me. But yeah, I'm the guy that's like, Mike, I'm busy, I'm working, right? I'll
yeah,
talk to you later. But it's just like relationships. I mean, what else do you have?
yeah.
You know, what
In
is
the
more
end of
important?
the day, that's it, right? At the end of the day, that's what you have. When you talk about the end in mind,
Yes,
at the
yes,
end, 90 years old, that's
yes,
what you have.
yes.
Brilliant stuff. And I think this is one of the coolest things that's ever been said on my podcast. When I call somebody, I want them to light up.
No doubt.
I want to bring value to them. I want to, basically, I want to make their day better. I always say I pray every night that I can be a blessing to people. I just want to be a blessing to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Put down my competitiveness and all that kind of stuff. That's been kind of hard for me is put down my competitiveness and get out there. But um, your parents had to have a huge influence on you, Mike. I mean, your parents, I kind of want to just go back there because I think we'd be missing something on this podcast if we didn't really talk about the influence and the lessons that your mom and dad have given you. That,
Yeah.
can you just expand on that just a little bit? We don't have to go too far into it, but I think this is important.
Sure. No, I mean they've been phenomenal, and they still are phenomenal, right? They still
Yeah.
are. My mom in her 70s went back and got her. Has a double master's, and she just got her doctorate in theology.
Wow.
In her 70s, right? She's an educated person.
Wow.
She has talked the talk and she's walked the walk.
Yeah.
The doing part of education,
Yeah.
she's done it, and so um, you know, the structure that they gave us, the foundation, right? I think when you or if you are able to have both parents or even one parent, if you're fortunate enough to have any parents, like what they did for us is they built a framework to where we always knew we need to stay inside that frame. We had freedom to go here and do some things and be young and make mistakes, but we always felt that framework where out of respect, we never want to step outside of that. And we
Yeah.
always felt supported. We always felt loved. We always felt encouraged. We always felt like we had resources available. And so they just created a framework to be successful. And my brother played professional football for some time. My sister has a law degree. My brother's an entrepreneur as well, played professional football, entrepreneur for 20 plus years. My sister uh, is a lawyer. Works in the medical field now, and so we have a family of people that have put in work. Right,
What a
we all have more
foundation.
work to put in, but we saw the blueprint for work and effort.
Yeah.
Right, um,
And you're all serving.
and we're serving. We're all serving in
You're all
different.
serving. Your mom served and your dad served,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Things are caught, not taught,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. That's why when you said that, I was like, yes, you're true. So my family's they've been in serving positions, I think, my whole life, and I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
But obviously, the military you're serving, and even after my dad retired from the military, he was a captain of the police force at George Mason University in Fairfax. So, you know, obviously, you look at the military as serving, but I didn't really look at both of them serving until I was older. I
Yeah.
didn't look at that
Right.
when I was younger.
Yeah. Because that's just what it was, right? That's what you grew up with. That's what you saw every day.
Sorry.
So that's what was in your family. This is an amazing. You have an amazing story, and I go back to I want to go back to Virginia Tech, and you just chose to major in sociology,
Sorry.
and you found that as something that was kind of your passion.
Yeah.
I want speak to young people here, Mike. Speak to young people who are trying to figure out they're graduating high school right now. They want to go to college. They don't know what to major in.
Sure.
Speak to them about what they should major in.
I think take time to think about what you're interested in. I believe you are truly blessed if you fall into something that you're naturally strong in and passionate about, and then you can find a way to make income from that.
There you go.
That's
Yeah,
absolute bless. That's a bullseye.
yeah,
Think above, right? Not initially, not everybody does that, right? But I would say take time to think about what you like and what you're passionate about, right? And you might not have the exact job title or even specific major that tells you that initially. But if you start to think about how you want to live, what you want to be doing, what type of impact you want to have, what's interesting to you, and you start with the end, right? You'll work your way to having enough conversations to where you can figure out where you fall in and what's the best next step. And just because it's the next step doesn't mean it's the final step,
right. Yeah,
right? So even if you go one direction, I mean, life has a funny way of changing your
yeah,
direction,
yeah, yeah.
right? So you don't have to have it all figured out. I think I would encourage everybody to really start to think about what gives them energy, right? I'm not saying necessarily what you do for free, but maybe, and start to think about that and work your way backwards. That's what I would say.
And maybe get that flip chart out.
Get the, it worked.
Yeah,
It
I love
worked.
that. Yeah.
It worked. It
So
worked.
here's a cool story. My dad's 90 now, and he had a friend that he had been friends with since kindergarten. This was about 6 years ago. And I took him over to see his friend, and his friend was in a nursing home, really couldn't get out of bed. It was I think he passed a week later after we went over there. But as my dad and him were talking, my dad's friend, who was a commercial airline pilot, that was his career. He looked over at my dad and he said, "I just wish I could fly again."
Wow.
And it
Hmm.
hit me like a ton of bricks. You talked about begin with the end in mind. When I'm 90 years old, laying in bed, am I going to say, I just wish I could coach again, or I just
Hmm.
wish I could do this podcast again, or I just wish I could, help somebody again? And I can honestly say yes. But how many people don't get to say that when
No
they're
doubt.
90? Go back and say, I just wish I could do my career one more day,
No doubt.
right? Because you and I talked about it yesterday. 70% of Americans are disengaged at work, meaning 7 out of 10 people going to work every day don't want to be there.
Yes.
Okay. I want to be one of those 3 out of 10 that
Yeah.
when I'm 90 and says, I just wish I could do that one more day.
No doubt
So
about it.
my
No.
thing to people is if you're in that seven, if you're one of those 7 out of 10, figure out how to get into your passion, figure out how to get out of it and get into your passion because you only get to do this once. But the way you described that was perfect. I told my own kids when they went to college, major in your passion. And they're trying to figure it out. Major in your passion. How can you serve and help people, make money, make a career, whatever you want to do, but just make sure that you're doing it because it's in here and you love to do it. And you explain that perfectly. We're almost out of time, Mike. I can't believe this has gone so fast. I wrote a book called The Three Ps: Find Your Purpose, Perspective, and Passion. Off of that 70% stat I just said, because I think a lot of people don't have a purpose to go to work. They don't have a purpose that's greater than themselves. So I ask every guest on my podcast those three questions. Basically, what's your purpose in life, Mike? Why are you here?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. Like I want to be a blessing to everybody I come across. I can't say I've accomplished that,
Yeah,
but I believe when we have connections like this on an individual level or multiple people, it's your time to to sow into somebody, right? And that sewing into somebody could just be with your attitude and your presence and your aura. There's some people that you can be around and you're like, I don't know what it is. I don't, but I feel good when I'm around them. I feel like they're doing something, feel like they're successful or whatever. They just they have it, right? And there's other people that when you're around, it's just like, it's just like, and so my goal is every time I connect with somebody is to add value in however and whatever that looks like. That's really important to me. As soon as I see my wife, as soon as I see my kids, I say, thank the Lord, you have a new day. It's great to see you. Thank the Lord I see. Every day. That's how I greet them. Right? They're coming out of their room. Thank the Lord. You got a new day, right? I'm bringing energy to them, and that's my thing. I'm not putting that on anybody else, but I want to bring that to them immediately, right? And I want them to take that and share that because I feel like if that was more valued by people and we all took time to do that, this world just looks different.
yeah. That's
It just looks different. So that's a goal of mine. That's a passion of mine. That's not something that I had to write down to do specifically, but that gives me energy,
so
right? That
so
gives me,
your purpose is adding value to people's lives,
yeah,
serving them. So
no
I
doubt.
skip over perspective for a second. I'll go over to passion. What's your passion in life? What do you love to do?
That's a great question.
Hmm.
This
Yeah,
this I mean, again, like talking to people, like I'll tell you the truth, my friends have 3 or 4 missed calls from me before they're able to get back to me, but I love this.
yeah, yeah,
I like connecting with people, talking with people, learning from people, growing with people. Like this is what I'm about, right? And it gives me energy.
yeah.
It gives me energy, right?
Amazing. So your purpose and passion kind of equal each other.
Yeah.
They kind of support each other.
And I would say my purpose and passion are connected. I think my purpose is to, I'm a believer. I have my beliefs, and is to be a good example
Yeah,
and a good story with what I have, and be a light to people,
right.
and hopefully they share that light with somebody else.
Join
And
Jesus on mission.
yeah,
So now, what holds it together, Mike? Because things come at us,
yes.
okay, and I call them the arrows. So if you put a big circle and you put your purpose and passion inside that circle, there's a lot of arrows that come at us that try to take us out of that. There's
Yeah.
a lot of things that happen on a daily basis or a monthly basis or a weekly basis that come at us to try to take us out of there, that make us really question our purpose and passion and question why we're in there. And the monks have a saying that you protect your purpose so your purpose protects you. So what I have people do is draw a big extra circle around that circle, and that represents memory foam.
Mm.
So those arrows come and they stick in that memory foam, but they're not going to pop our purpose. We're going to stay in there. And it's kind of like what you talked about earlier. We're going to learn from those uncomfortable things. We're going to learn from those arrows. We're going to grow from those arrows, but we're not going to let them beat us. We're not going to let them get into our purpose.
Okay.
What that is your perspective.
Mm.
So when something happens to us, adversity happens to us, and so forth, now we kind of look, we know our purpose and passion is there, but we kind of forget about it because these things are coming at us at the moment.
Yeah.
But our perspective holds it together. I call the perspective as the glue that holds it
Mm.
together.
Love it.
So what's your perspective on life? What when you're going through something tough, what's your perspective that kind of gets you back into your purpose and passion?
Yeah, another another great question. Um, I would say it's not about me all the time,
Wow, wow.
most of the time.
Yeah,
I think, especially in this day and age, your personal mental health is talked about, and it's a priority, and it should be.
yeah,
But in the same token, anytime that I've been down, when I sew into somebody else, I've always felt better coaching.
yeah.
You can have whatever going on, then you get to practice time, and all that other stuff is gone,
Right,
at least temporarily.
right.
You're serving those kids, it's all gone, and that's how I feel when I get into these type of dialogues, and when I'm talking to people, and when I'm calling my buddy who's going through something that I had no idea about, but I just called to check on him, and I'm just calling to sew into him and be a light to him. And so my thing, and I've learned this through sports, is a lot of things are not about you, right? It's not about you. It's not even about how you feel necessarily, right? Because that can be fleeting. And I'm not discouraging people to take note of how they're feeling and what they're going through individually. But anytime I get those type of arrows, I get into servanthood.
Wow.
I get into servanthood. I look for ways to sew into people. I still address what's going on. For me, there's other things that I can do to help me mentally, as far as exercising, working out, taking walks, running, whatever, all those different things. But I try to get into action and to serving.
When you feel helpless, you help others. That's what gets you out of it.
That's what I mean. Do a good deed.
Yeah.
So, because
Wow.
you think about your own challenges, but to somebody else, those aren't challenges. Those are like blessings, like big time blessings. And so, again, there's a fine line between taking care of yourself mentally, physically, but then, serving other people. Get
Yeah.
the eyes off yourself, serve. And you partly learn that through sports.
Yeah.
You partly learn that,
Yeah.
right?
So last thing, and I'll let you go. I think I could go on forever with you, but it's how do people get a hold of you? I'm an ex-athlete. So what your guys are doing is for ex-college and pro athletes.
Right.
So that's kind of this niche right now.
Yes.
Um, I'm a ex-college, ex-pro athlete. How do I get a hold of you guys to get involved with your locker room to boardroom?
Absolutely. Right now, I'd check out our social media. I'd get on our Instagram and go to Locker Room to Boardroom and just reach out to us. Send us a DM. We're actively growing and looking to expand the network and community. We want to connect as many people as possible. So if you're a former collegiate or a professional athlete and you're looking to expand your network, increase your network, network with different people, find community, find people that have shared similar experiences, whatever you're looking for, this community is going to provide you with an ability to connect with someone that can help you in that area or can help you in multiple areas. And so I would say get on Instagram, send us a DM. We'll send you some more additional information, and we'd love to connect with you. Every individual person that comes to our community makes our community so much better. And so we need more examples of people that are working through this process that have been successful in this process or at the beginning of the process. We need it all because everybody's story is powerful and helpful to somebody.
Yeah,
But if that story is not communicated or shared or people don't have awareness, it stops with you,
yeah,
you know. And the fact of the matter is, it needs to be beyond you because you don't know who you can impact. You
right.
don't know. And if you impact one person, that's a lot. That's one more person that you might have impacted just by sharing your testimony and your story. So please reach out to us, and we're excited to connect with you.
I love it. And your passion for this and your purpose and passion for this is unbridled. It's awesome. And you can tell how much you care about this and helping people with this. So I encourage you to get involved, people, if you fit the criteria and so forth and want to be a part of something greater than yourself, this is it. And this will help you a ton. Mike, thank you. Your story today inspired others. Your passion for relationships, I think, is something that people need to hear because we don't have enough of them right now because of phones and so forth. Our relationships are with our thumbs.
Yes.
Okay. And what you described in a relationship of doing what you and I are doing, or getting together for coffee, or calling your friend that you haven't talked to in a while, or who's having a hard time, or all those different things, relationship, relationship, relationship. And you can tell how passionate you are in that. And I 100% believe in that as well. So I'm so glad you came on. And you're a beautiful person. You come from a beautiful family. I know you have a beautiful wife and kids now and so forth. And what your kids are catching from you and your parents and your wife's parents and your wife is pretty amazing too. And
You hope so.
I
You,
just
you
yeah,
pray
you
so.
do, you do. But I appreciate you more than you know for what you're doing for the world and just thank you for taking the time and coming on today and really diving deep into some leadership stuff, some relationship stuff, some passion stuff, what you guys are doing and serving others and so forth. It's a story that needs to be heard, and it's a story that's going to inspire people. So thank you so much.
Appreciate you, Joe. We've had great conversations, and thank you for your work in the community and over time in coaching. And that's a sometimes a thankless job, and you're creating men. You know,
It
you
was
creating
fun.
men. So
Yeah, it was fun.
you've had a major impact on families and probably generations. Good coaches instill things into their kids that they pass down to their kids and will be passed. So you've changed generations by what you're doing. And so I appreciate it. I appreciate what you do and our new relationship, and just look forward to working with you more and want to support you in every way that we can, and just excited about just growing and helping and connecting with people.
Yeah, it's awesome. I appreciate kind words. I
Good.
have to say this before we go. What's your ring? Is that your 2004 championship?
This is the
Look at
last
that.
one on the
Look,
flip chart.
look
This is
at
the last
that.
one on
Yeah,
the flip
last
chart
one on the flip chart.
to win a championship. So this is our ACC championship ring and Sugar Bowl ring.
How much did that matter to you? Will be counted on for senior leadership. 5 years before that, he put win a championship. 5 years after that, he's the senior leading them to the championship. Goosebumps right now thinking about that.
Yeah. Just talking about it because I hadn't even heard that description. I don't know if that's from. I don't know what that's from, but it's cool to be. When we look back at this thing when we're 90,
Yeah,
some of those ways that I'm humbled by that, but some of the ways that I was described is how I would love to be described.
Yeah, it's
You
awesome.
know, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that. And
Well,
thank you for sharing that. That you lifted me. I mean, that made me,
it's
we
amazing.
don't need too many ego boosts, we stay humble, but to hear that is cool. And especially when it's things that you care about.
Yeah, it means something to you, but it meant something to you to do it with a bunch of people. It didn't mean for you to do it yourself. It meant something for you to do it with a group of people that will always be there. No one can ever take that away from you and your group, your team.
That's right.
And that's what's so strong about it. And that can be in business, it can be in athletics, it can be in anything. So I want people to understand the team, the team, the team.
Team. That's
So
that, that's great to
thank
hear.
you all so much for listening today. What a great hour with Mike Daniels today. Ex Division One football player, now running some really cool stuff with locker room to boardroom. And please, as I tell you all the time, as we leave this podcast today, please, please, please keep learning, growing, and progressing every single day. The clock never runs out on those three things. Keep figuring out a way to keep doing it and helping others do the same. Thank you so much for listening and have a great week.